Imagine standing on a windswept plateau at the very edge of the world, where the land drops sharply into a deep, silent gorge. The air here is cold and dry, scented faintly of wild thyme crushed underfoot. Far below, a river winds its way through the rocky chasm, its water a shimmering thread of silver under the pale winter sun. And there, across the canyon, rising from the barren grasslands like ghosts from another age, are the broken silhouettes of stone towers, shattered walls, and empty cathedrals. This is Ani. Once, it was called the City of 1001 Churches. Now, it is a city of whispers, where the wind moves through roofless aisles and crumbling archways, as though still carrying the hymns of a vanished people. But Ani is not just another ruin. This was once one of the most dazzling capitals of the medieval world, a city so wealthy, so powerful, that its name was spoken with awe in distant courts from Byzantium to Persia. And yet today, it lies silent, abandoned, its stones scattered like bones across the high plain of eastern Anatolia near the border between modern-day Turkey and Armenia. So how does a city rise to such glory, and then vanish so completely that even its name was nearly forgotten? 1,000 years ago, Ani was no forgotten frontier. It was the pride of the Bagratid Armenian kingdom, a jewel of trade, culture, and faith. Strategically perched on the Silk Road, Ani sat at a crossroads of empires, where caravans carried silk from China, spices from India, and silver from Europe. In the 10th and 11th centuries, it was home to perhaps 100,000 people, an astonishing size for the era, rivaling the great cities of Constantinople and Cairo. Travelers approaching Ani from the west would have seen it long before they reached its gates. Its fortified walls, massive stone ramparts studded with semicircular towers, stretched for miles across the grassy plateau. Beyond them, the skyline bristled with the domes and spires of churches, each built of the region's distinctive volcanic tuff, stone that glowed deep orange at sunrise, soft pink at sunset. The name City of 1001 Churches was not just poetic exaggeration. Ani's people were devout, and its rulers poured wealth into grand cathedrals, chapels, and monasteries. The Cathedral of Ani, designed by the celebrated architect Turdat, the same man who repaired the dome of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, rose in graceful arches and delicate carvings. Its design a masterpiece of medieval Armenian architecture. Inside, shafts of sunlight poured through high windows, glinting off gilded crosses and painted frescoes. The air would have been heavy with the scent of incense, the murmured prayers of priests echoing under the vaulted ceiling. Yet Ani was more than just churches. Bustling markets lined its streets. Merchants sold silks dyed in brilliant blues, copper lamps, carved ivory, and honey from the surrounding valleys. Narrow alleys wound between tall stone houses, their courtyards shaded by fruit trees. In the evenings, the city came alive with the sounds of musicians and storytellers in its taverns, and the distant clang of blacksmiths in their forges. It must have felt eternal, but Ani's golden age lasted only a breath in the long story of history. The first shadow fell in 1045, when the Bagratid kingdom fell to the Byzantine Empire. At first, Ani's fortunes didn't change drastically. Trade still flowed. The churches still rang their bells. But power was shifting in the region. Within decades, the Seljuk Turks swept across Anatolia, and in 1064, the armies of Alp Arslan surrounded Ani. The siege was brutal. Chronicles speak of battering rams crashing against the walls, of fire arrows raining down on the city, of desperate defenders fighting in the narrow streets. When the Seljuks breached the gates, they unleashed a massacre so devastating that later poets wrote the river below ran red for days. Ani survived the conquest, but it had been dealt a wound from which it would never fully recover. Over the next centuries, the city changed hands again and again. Persians, Georgians, Mongols, Ottomans. Each new ruler left their mark, but each also drained Ani of its strength. Trade routes shifted, bypassing the plateau. Earthquakes tore through its churches, collapsing domes and shattering walls. In 1319, one quake struck so violently that entire neighborhoods crumbled in moments. Still, people clung to Ani, rebuilding as best they could. But by the 17th century, the city had dwindled to a village, and then it was abandoned entirely. Now comes the mystery: why Ani, with its strong walls and fertile surroundings, could not endure. Historians point to the shifting trade routes as a slow death sentence. When merchants chose safer paths further south, Ani's economy withered. The constant wars made it a dangerous place to live, and earthquakes made it a fragile one. Some whisper of plague sweeping through the city, though records are scarce. Others suggest that Ani's isolation, once a defense, became a curse when its population could no longer sustain itself. But perhaps the real mystery isn't why Ani fell, but how it faded so completely from memory. In many places, abandoned cities live on in local legend, their ruins integrated into folk tales. But for centuries, Ani's stones stood alone, the wind the only witness to their slow decay. When European travelers rediscovered Ani in the 19th century, they were stunned. The walls still stood, though weathered. Churches rose roofless to the sky, their carved crosses and stone reliefs still intricate despite the centuries. One could walk through the deserted streets and imagine the sound of traders haggling, the tolling of bells, the footsteps of pilgrims. It was like walking into a dream, a place frozen in the moment of its own vanishing. And Ani's architecture holds secrets still. Some churches bear inscriptions so worn they can barely be read, records of kings, bishops, and battles. Others hide curious carvings, strange animal figures, celestial patterns, and symbols that predate Christianity's arrival in the region. The Church of St. Gregory of Tigran-Honense is covered in vivid frescoes that miraculously survived the centuries. Scenes of saints, but also depictions of everyday life, as if the artist wanted to preserve not just the faith, but the faces and labors of Ani's people. Walk to the edge of the city and you'll find underground passages, tunnels carved into the rock, leading down toward the river. Were they escape routes, secret trade passages, or perhaps places of refuge during sieges? No one can say for certain. And then there's the most haunting part. Ani is not entirely dead. On certain days, local shepherds still bring their flocks to graze among the ruins. A faint path runs through the old market square, worn by centuries of feet, long after the merchants vanished. And if you stand in the right place on a still morning, the wind can sound uncannily like voices, as though the city is remembering itself. Some say Ani's fate is a warning, that even the greatest cities are only temporary, that walls crumble and wealth fades, but the land endures. Others see it as a mystery still unfolding, that there are stories in its stones yet to be uncovered, perhaps buried beneath centuries of dust. Archaeologists continue to work here, unearthing coins, pottery, and fragments of manuscript, each one a piece of the puzzle. And yet, there's a part of me that hopes Ani never gives up all its secrets, because sometimes the beauty of a mystery is not in solving it, but in standing before it in wonder. As the sun sets over the plateau, the stones of Ani turn to fire, deep orange and gold against the darkening sky. The shadows stretch across the grasslands, and the cold begins to bite. Somewhere in the distance, a lone church bell hangs silent, its rope long since rotted away. And yet, you can almost imagine it ringing, calling a city long gone back to life, just for a moment. Ani may be abandoned, but it is not gone. Not as long as we remember it. Not as long as the wind still moves through its empty streets. Thank you for walking with me through the lost streets of Ani. Now, I'd like to ask you, what do you think truly caused the city of 1,001 churches to vanish? Was it war, trade, nature, or something deeper, something we may never understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like, comment, and share. It truly helps keep these stories alive.